it's Anne. A pleasure to be talking with you today. Hey, I've got a question for you. Do you ever get terribly sad or hurt or angry in response to other people especially? Well, if you do, you probably know that I'd recommend acknowledging those feelings. But do you ever wonder, well, what good is it to acknowledge your feelings when what you really want is for the other person to change? Well, maybe acknowledging your feelings feels like you're telling them to calm down. Like if something's going on that needs to change, I don't want to calm down. I want to take action, right? Yeah, I get that. But there's something there that doesn't capture the whole picture. Like either acknowledge feelings or take action, one or the other. That either or leaves something out for me. But it's hard to explain that, and I didn't really have a good example of what I mean until I heard from my student Abigail. So Abigail's been learning from me how to acknowledge her feelings. She's also in a really tough situation these days with a husband who criticizes her harshly when he's stressed. And lately, well, like the rest of us, he's been stressed a lot. And Abigail grew up in a family where her mother and father had terrible fights. And she's determined not to repeat that in her own marriage. But it's hard because she doesn't know what to do with the rage and sadness that come up in her when her husband speaks cruelly to her. Well, when Abigail first acknowledged her feelings, she put her hand on her heart. She felt the rage and sadness in there, and she said to the feelings, I know you're there. She did everything I suggested. And nothing happened. The feelings were as strong as ever, and her husband was still speaking to her in the same harsh way, and she was still feeling bad about it. So now what? Well, I did teach Abigail a next step, and it's an interesting one. It's to say to the feelings inside, I really acknowledge how hard this is for you. Like that. I really acknowledge how hard this is for you. And when Abigail did this, something very interesting happened. She felt some words rise up in her to express herself to her husband. And she felt empowered to say them. The words were, remember, I'm the one who loves you. I don't like to be spoken to in that way. Oh, wow, talk about strong, loving empowerment. Nothing could be more different from her mother and father screaming at each other, or from staying silent and just taking the abuse. I don't know where she found those words. She doesn't either. They just came. They came from the fact that she was facing her feelings of rage and sadness, allowing those feelings to be here, but not getting carried away by them. Abigail told me she felt so full of self-love at that moment. That's what turned everything around. Earlier, when she heard her husband speaking harshly to her, it undermined her sense of worth within herself. And now, because she was treating herself so lovingly, the words that emerged were both loving and strong. I don't deserve to be spoken to like that. Please stop and remember, it's me who loves you. Wow. Well, I wish I could say that her husband changed right away. She needed to repeat this process the next time and the next. But here's what really touches me. In a way, it doesn't matter what her husband does, because Abigail has changed. As she told me, every time I say this to my husband, a bigger space opens in me, and I feel even more self-love. So that's the gift. And I feel like that's the answer to that either-or dichotomy I was talking about earlier. You remember where You might think you either acknowledge your feelings or you take action. Well, for Abigail, acknowledging her feelings and acknowledging how hard the situation was for them, that's what led to her taking action. Empowered action that was loving of herself and the other person. You know, here's what I find. When we act on our feelings without pausing first, we're likely to escalate the situation. But when we pause, acknowledge, get bigger than our feelings, we can find an action that actually helps the situation. And oh, don't we need that these days? You know, your feelings are here to support you, but it's best not to simply act on them without pausing to sense what's really right for the whole situation. We have a wisdom that is bigger than our feelings, and it's bigger than our logical mind. Pausing, acknowledging, and sensing can help us get there. And that's important. Would you like even more support trying steps like these? You can sign up for my weekly tips. The link is just below this video. And you'll get even more helpful tips like this one that can make a huge difference for you. And here's to you having a more peaceful life.